Alright. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Late Night Tips. In tonight's episode, I would like to walk you through how to set up iConnect MIDI 4 to serve as an advanced MIDI crossover. Following my late night rant video about the best piece of hardware in my studio, a couple of you asked me to walk you through the process of setting this up because the app can be a little bit challenging. I personally think that the app is really well written, but it requires a lot of focus and a lot of patience, and you really need to be well organized and concentrated in order to get the best out of the app. So what I would like to do in here is actually reset my iConnect MIDI to factory settings and rebuild my setup that I have in here in the studio from scratch. Let's get right into it. The most important thing about setting up iConnect MIDI 4, in my opinion, is going with your signal flow in a sense. So following from input to output. So start with your first input and then route it to all the necessary outputs and then apply filters where necessary. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So let me show you my setup first. So MIDI DIN 1 is Ensoniq, which is my master keyboard as an input, and MS-20 as an output. And then an iPad is connected to USB 1. The iPad is both sending MIDI information and receiving MIDI information from this USB. The second USB port is my MacBook, but it's only for setup purposes. Normally this is unplugged. Then going around the back, we have the nano control into the USB host, and it's only an input. And then we have MIDI DIN 2, which is PerkPad, which is my third input device. And the Octatrack is the hub that controls all the MIDI devices in here. So that's why it's coming right back into MIDI 3. Then the output of MIDI 3 is the Volca FM, and then MIDI 4 is Ableton. Because I'm recording all the audio in this video into Ableton, so I won't be really able to show you how it's connected to Ableton, but I'm just using my Focusrite sound card and using the DIN ports on the sound card to connect it to the iConnect MIDI. I admit that this is not the best setup, it's not the cleanest setup, because it was developing over time and I didn't want to tear it down, I was just adding functionalities to it. But it goes to show you how flexible iConnect MIDI is. Time for a cup of tea, this is really complicated. So let's hit that reset button and let's get going. Okay, so the first thing that you might want to do is actually reset the routings, the factory routings. Because if you do a factory reset, it loads its own settings. And once you start building this complicated setup, those factory settings might actually cause a ground loop of death and crash the Octatrack. So I'm going to go to my DINs, you see in here, and I'm going to click in here to deselect everything. I wish there was a better way of deselecting. I haven't found it yet. Maybe there's one. Right clicking doesn't really help, no. So I'll just go one by one very, very quickly and remove those routings completely. To prevent any strange behavior. Good. Okay, now that we've done that, let's go to MIDI info. I'm actually not going to change much in here. I'm just going to call this one Nano Control, so it's easier to find, and I'm going to deselect output because we only want to use the input in here. Okay, so let's start with our routing. And let's start with my first input device, which is the Ensoniq. So here I have port routes, destinations, and enabled is grade. So in here, I basically decide where the DIN 1 input is sending MIDI. So as we see in here, I want the Ensoniq to send MIDI in to the Octatrack. So it would be MIDI DIN out. Here we go. And let's see if it works. Here we go, that's the Moog. So now to make sure that everything works smoothly, I'm going to go to channel remap. So the Octatrack is set up to receive on auto channel 10. And actually what I want to do is I want to make sure that it's receiving like that. So I'm going to go DIN1 input. This is a very important part, input, DIN1, and remap to channel 10. And I'm going to put 10 everywhere. Okay, so now I want to connect my MS-20 and my Volca. And keep in mind, I don't want to control them from the Ensoniq, I want to control them really from the Octatrack, which is being controlled from the Ensoniq. Right now, the Octatrack is coming right back in to input 3, and that's what I'm going to connect the MS-20 and the Volca to. So I'm going to DIN 3, and my MS-20 is connected to DIN 1. So here we go. And the Volca is connected to DIN 3. So here we go. Let's check. That's MS-20. And that's the Volca. So it works. So my final Octatrack connection is Octatrack sending MIDI into the iPad, into the Nano Studio. I'm going to go to DIN 3 and going to USB device jack. Let's see. I'm going to go to channel 13 in here. And it works. Simple as that. Now I want to send more inputs into the Octatrack. So let's go to my second input, which would be the perk pad. The perk pad is on DIN 2 here. So again, I go to DIN 2 and I send it to the Octatrack output, which is also DIN 2. Okay, and let's check it. Yeah, works. My next input for the purpose of this one is going to be my nano control. So I'm going to go to my nano control, USB host jack. Oh, we have a huge mess in here. And I want to send it to the Octatrack output, which is again DIN 2. So let's see if this works right now. Yeah. And my final connection that I need to do is the Patchbase app into Volca FM. I'm going to go to USB device jack, remove all the routings because I don't need that. And I'm going to send it to my Volca, which is 3. DIN jack 3. That's what I'm going to enable. So let's open the app. And let's load some samples. And let's see. Wow. Yeah, so that's about it for this video on how to set up iConnect MIDI. The setup is pretty complex, but it was actually relatively easy to do. If you have any questions about the setup, I'd be more than happy to answer them to the best of my ability. If you'd like to see any other gear tutorials, make sure to let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night and take care.